Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a device that really shifted the whole conversation around portable gaming.
That's right.
We're talking about the Valve Steam Deck,
Ah.
but specifically we are diving deep into the most accessible model, the entry-level 64 GB eMMC version.
Yeah, this was the one that posed that huge question. Can you actually shrink a proper modern PC gaming experience into, a handheld form factor you can just take anywhere?
Exactly.
Valve basically pitched it as bridging that massive gap between, say, your desktop PC rig and something streamlined like the Nintendo Switch.
And whether they pulled that off really rests heavily on this base model, doesn't it?
It does.
Because on paper, it looks like a collection of compromises,
Yep.
especially that small storage and the slower type of storage. So our mission today is to figure out if that lowest price point actually delivers enough performance, enough of the experience to still count as a portable PC powerhouse.
Or if those compromises are just, too much of a headache for the average person picking it up.
Right. It's a balancing act. Affordability versus usability.
Definitely. Well, look at the design, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Then the performance, which is frankly shocking for the price.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, we absolutely have to spend some real time on the biggest catch, how that 64 GB storage shapes the whole deal.
Okay, let's unpack this. First off, the physical device itself, because that's what grabs you immediately. The design. People have called it like a beefier Nintendo Switch crossed with something from a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it's unapologetically big, isn't it? I mean, some handhelds go for super lightweight.
Right.
The Steam Deck kind of embraces its size because that size lets it be really ergonomic. Comfort seems to have been the top priority. Those deep grips,
Yeah.
they make longer sessions genuinely comfortable.
Yeah, it feels like a proper controller almost, but just built around a screen.
Yeah.
If you're used to PC gamepads, it feels familiar.
Exactly.
Though the layout, the width of it, it's wider than most handhelds. The reports say it takes a little getting used to.
A bit, yeah. Especially coming from something smaller. But once your hands adjust, button placement, the sticks, the shoulder buttons, it all feels pretty well thought out.
Okay, and the screen. What's the viewing experience like?
So it's a 7-inch display. Resolution is 1280 by 800, running at 60 hertz. Now, those numbers might sound a bit modest today.
Yeah, compared to high refresh phones and things.
Right. But that resolution is actually really smart.
Yeah.
It's perfectly matched to get the best performance out of the hardware inside. Helps keep frame rates up.
And there's that interesting aspect ratio, the 16:10, that little bit of extra vertical space. Why is that specific ratio so key for a PC machine?
Well, it's because it really leans into the PC gaming heritage. See, most consoles and handhelds now are 16.9 widescreen.
Mm-hmm.
But older PC games, or even modern ones with complex interfaces, sometimes scale kind of awkwardly on 16.9. Add extra vertical room from 16.10. It stops the screen feeling too cramped. It helps with UI elements not overlapping. Better vertical visibility in some games. It just feels more, native to PC stuff. It's a small detail, but it shows where Valve's head was at.
And speaking of PC heritage, nothing says PC more than the inputs. Those trackpads are the real standouts, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. They're the feature that really sets the deck apart from any traditional console handheld. Joysticks and buttons are standard.
Right.
But the trackpads, they give you something approaching mouse control. Think strategy games or FPS games where you need quick, precise aiming, or even just navigating the desktop mode.
Yeah.
They're kind of revolutionary for this form factor.
Mm-hmm.
It confirms this isn't just a console playing PC games. It's fundamentally a PC in your hands.
Which means it needs some serious grunt under the hood. That brings us nicely to the performance, because given the price of this base model, the hardware they packed in feels, well, frankly, almost too good to be true.
It does seem that way.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
It really boils down to that close work they did with AMD on the custom chip, the AP Accelerated Processing Unit.
Right.
It combines the CPU, which uses their Zen 2 architecture, and the GPU, the graphics part, which is RDNA 2. Putting them together on one chip minimizes delays, maximizes efficiency. Super important for a handheld dealing with heat and power.
But the component that maybe doesn't get enough credit, the unsung hero, is the RAM. Every single Steam Deck model, even this cheapest 64 GB one, gets 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM.
And that 16 GB is just crucial. It's the foundation for how well it handles multitasking and how long it'll stay relevant. Remember, this isn't running some lightweight, closed-off console OS.
No, it's Linux, plus that compatibility layer for Windows games.
Exactly. That all needs memory overhead. On a desktop PC, 16 GB is generally seen as the comfortable sweet spot for gaming right now.
Mm-hmm.
Having that much in a handheld ensures that even when a demanding game is running, the OS stays responsive, loading doesn't completely bog down, and you can handle background stuff.
Okay.
It genuinely helps future-proof it compared to if they'd say only put in 8 GB.
And the performance reports, they're consistently positive, almost shockingly so. We know the lighter indie games, your Hades, Hollow Knight, Stardew Valley, they run like a dream. High frame rates, no problem.
Yeah, it's kind of expected, right?
But what about the really demanding stuff, the big AAA titles?
That's where the surprise factor comes in.
Yeah.
Because of that smart hardware combination and the 800p resolution target, games like Elden Ring or Cyberpunk 2077 are actually playable.
Playable, like smooth.
Surprisingly so.
Uh-huh.
Now look, you're not cranking everything to ultra settings, of course not.
Right.
You'll need to lower texture quality, maybe dial back shadows, often aim for a stable 30 frames per second instead of 60.
Okay.
But the fact that you can get a smooth, enjoyable experience on those kinds of cutting-edge games, even with some tweaking, that's a massive achievement for this price. It really delivers on that promise of playing your existing PC library on the go.
Okay, performance is great, ergonomics are solid. If the core device is so good, why is this 64 GB eMMC version seen as the compromise? We need to talk about the storage.
Yeah, this is where the cost-cutting becomes really apparent. That 64 GB internal drive, well, the capacity is obviously limited. That's the first hurdle. But just as importantly, it uses eMMC memory. That's an older, noticeably slower type of flash storage compared to the NVMe SSDs you find in the more expensive Steam Deck models.
Okay, for someone listening who isn't deep into storage tech, what does eMMC versus NVMe actually feel like in daily use? Can you give us an analogy?
Okay, think of it like roads.
Yeah.
An NVMe SSD is like having a brand new multi-lane highway straight to your game data, super fast, direct, responsive.
Right.
eMMC is more like, well, like an older single-lane country road, maybe with some potholes. It gets you there, but it's slower.
And that impacts everything.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Installing games takes significantly longer. In-game loading times for levels, textures, assets, they're all slower.
I read one comparison where, like, loading into a game's main menu could take almost a minute longer on the eMMC compared to the NVMe version. That's substantial.
It really is. And that sluggishness isn't just in games. It can affect the overall system responsiveness, too, pulling up menus, launching apps, booting the device. The storage itself becomes a bottleneck.
And the capacity issue is immediate, right? The operating system takes up a chunk of that 64 GB to begin with.
Absolutely. Install one big modern AAA game, something like Red Dead Redemption 2 or recent Call of Duty, and poof, your entire internal drive could be full. Or close to it.
So I have to play devil's advocate here. If the internal storage is that limited and slow, and you basically have to buy a micro SD card immediately, is this really an entry-level success, or is it just selling you half a device?
That's a fair point, and it really gets to who this 64 GB model is actually for. It is definitely not for someone who wants a seamless plug-and-play console-like experience with a massive library ready to go.
Okay.
Valve knew this, which is why they included that high-speed micro SD card slot. Using an SD card isn't just recommended, it's pretty much essential for this model if you want to play more than one or two large games.
So the workaround using the SD card is basically mandatory.
For most people's libraries, yes. It means you need to be okay with managing where your games are installed. Maybe keep smaller indies on the internal drive and put the big AAA titles on the SD card.
Right. It demands a bit more user effort.
Precisely. It's a trade-off. You save money up front, but you spend a bit more time and effort managing your storage. It dramatically lowers the entry price, but asks the user to be willing to, tinker a little.
Okay, let's shift from the hardware to the software, the operating system. This is where the Steam Deck really cements its PC identity, right? Through SteamOS.
Absolutely. SteamOS 3.0, which is built on Linux, specifically Arch Linux, is incredibly capable. When you first boot it up, you're in gaming mode. And Valve designed that to feel very clean, very intuitive, much like a modern console interface.
Easy to browse your library, launch games.
Exactly. Super seamless for just jumping into your Steam games.
But the real technical wizardry, the thing that lets it run thousands of games that were never designed for Linux, is Proton, isn't it? We should probably explain that a bit.
Yeah, Proton is huge. It's Valve's custom compatibility layer. See, traditionally, getting Windows games to run on Linux could be a real nightmare, very technical, often didn't work well.
Right.
Proton basically acts as a translator. It takes the instructions a Windows game is trying to execute the API calls and translates them on the fly into something Linux can understand.
So it tricks the game into thinking it's running on Windows.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It means developers don't necessarily have to create a separate Linux version of their game. Proton handles the heavy lifting, often with surprisingly great performance.
That's incredible, really. It says a lot about Valve's commitment to the open PC platform.
It really does. And that commitment to openness shines even brighter when you switch out of that console-like gaming mode into desktop mode.
Ah, yes, the full PC experience.
Exactly. It transforms the Steam Deck into a proper Linux computer running the KDE Plasma desktop environment.
And that's where the real flexibility comes in. You can hook up a keyboard and mouse.
Yep. Install web browsers like Chrome or Firefox, use Discord, watch videos.
And crucially, for some users, you can install other game launchers, right? Like the Epic Game Store or GOG Galaxy. You're not locked into just Steam.
Precisely. You can add non-Steam games, run emulators, do pretty much anything you do on a regular Linux desktop. It's genuinely impressive how it morphs from this dedicated gaming handheld into a mini PC.
And that flexibility, again, circles back to why that 16 GB of RAM is so important, especially for desktop mode.
Absolutely. Running a full desktop environment, potentially multiple apps, alongside maybe downloading something that requires robust multitasking capability. The 16 GB ensures that switch between gaming and desktop use feels relatively smooth.
Okay, before we synthesize all this, quick practical point. Battery life. Sounds like it can vary wildly.
Oh, massively. It completely depends on what you're doing. If you're playing a very lightweight indie game, maybe something 2D, you could potentially stretch the battery to 5, maybe even 6 hours.
Okay, that's pretty decent.
But fire up one of those demanding AAA games we talked about, like Elden Ring or Cyberpunk running at full tilt. You could be looking at draining the battery in as little as 2 hours, maybe even less sometimes.
Wow. Okay, so definitely not an all-day device for heavy gaming sessions away from power.
Not without a power bank, no. Thankfully, it uses USB-C for charging and supports power delivery.
Which means faster charging.
Yep, and crucially, you can charge it while you're playing, or plug it into a USB-C dock to connect to a monitor and peripherals for that desktop setup. The versatility extends even to how you power it.
So what does this all mean? Let's try and pull it all together. We've got the great performance for the price, the smart ergonomic design, the incredible software flexibility with SteamOS and Proton, but all weighed against that significant storage limitation on the 64 GB model. Is it a success?
I think the overall consensus from reviews and users is a resounding yes, with a crucial asterisk. It's the ultimate value proposition. It is definitely a compromise, no question. But it's a compromise that delivers exceptional capability for the money. If you're someone who's willing to accept slightly slower load times and doesn't mind actively managing your game installs using microSD cards,
then this entry-level model gives you access to basically the entire modern PC gaming landscape in your hands.
Exactly. It unlocks that whole world.
So we can almost define the ideal buyer for this specific model. It's not the person looking for the absolute most seamless, zero-fuss experience like you get from a dedicated console.
Probably not, no.
The 64 GB version is more like the Tinkerer Special. It's for the gamer who really values that low entry price, loves the flexibility of the Linux environment, and is perfectly happy putting in that little bit of extra effort to manage the storage.
That sums it up perfectly. You just can't ignore the sheer power and openness Valve managed to deliver at this price point. It really did bring genuine PC gaming to a handheld form factor in a way that feels, well, natural and exciting. Even this cheapest version is arguably one of the most impressive bits of gaming hardware we've seen in years, just because of what it enables.
And that positive impression is only reinforced when you look at Valve's ongoing support, isn't it? They didn't just launch it and forget it.
No, absolutely not. That's key.
Yeah.
The Steam Deck gets frequent software updates. Proton compatibility improves constantly, meaning more Windows games run better over time. They tweak performance, fix bugs, add features.
It shows a real long-term commitment to the platform, not just a one-off hardware experiment.
Exactly. They're clearly invested in refining the experience, which ensures the hardware stays useful and relevant for much longer.
Which brings us to a really interesting final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Valve proved they can make a powerful, desirable handheld incredibly affordable by making a specific compromise on storage speed. So, does the huge success of this entry-level Steam Deck suggest that maybe we, as gamers and tech consumers, tend to overemphasize the importance of super fast internal storage compared to, say, the raw processing power and, maybe even more critically, the cleverness and efficiency of the software, like Proton, that runs everything?
Summing them all over, definitely. Especially as you're deciding which games fit on the internal drive and which need that SD card slot.
We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.